I'd like to pull up this story we have here from the Daily Mail. GOP leader Kevin McCarthy claims Biden's plan to forgive $10,000 in student loans is to distract from his failing agenda and stunt to subsidize degrees of the elite and leave working Americans paying the tab. For all of my progressive friends who are sitting here saying, I don't understand why anyone would be opposed to forgiving student loan debt. Don't you want to make people's lives better? You're just saying you want them to suffer because you suffered? Let me explain something very simply. What I'm saying is that I do not believe the government should take from the poor to give to the higher income earners. Low income earners will be paying the taxes that subsidize high income earners getting their debt cleared. And the high income earners who have the debt got to spend that money and do things with it. Now, I am for student debt forgiveness. I say we tax the universities and seize the endowments and forgive all the student loans that way. But if you're going to tell me that you are a reverse Robin Hood who wants to steal from the poor to give to the rich, I'm going to say screw off.
Yeah, also, whenever someone says something like, I can't imagine why anyone would oppose forgiving student loan debts, like, why would you admit that? You're telling on yourself, dude. That's really embarrassing. It's actually not that hard to figure out because it's a regressive tax. People who get degrees actually do tend to make more money, and the idea that someone who, A, already paid their college off because they worked through college or already paid their debt off, or decided to start working in a trade should be on the hook for the money that someone else who's making more money than them voluntarily took on as debt is insane.
Well, I got to ask, like, do you believe that the government should forgive student loan debt? I said, I don't think it can. Like, what do you mean? Of course it can. No, it can't. There's no way. When you say forgive, what you're essentially saying is that the person that lent something to you is now saying you don't owe it back. That's not how the government did this. The government took tax dollars by force and then distributed it in the form of loans, which you voluntarily took. So the government can't forgive that. All they can do is transfer the responsibility for paying it onto somebody that didn't take out the loan. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's all that's happened. This should never be talked about. Can the government forgive student loan debt? It's should the government transfer student loan debt off of people that took the loan and onto people who didn't take the loan? Because that's what they're going to do.
So they could forgive the interest, I guess.
Hold on. What if they seize the endowments from the universities or tax the universities to pay back those loans?
I mean, the bottom line is that legally, the universities were in a position to be able to, again, the money went to the person, the student,
yep.
And the student chose which university that they went to. So as much as I think the university has totally been in bed with the government in order to make all this happen, right? I still don't think you have legal grounds to go and seize their property as a result of this. As much as I would look at it from kind of a cosmic moral sense and be like, well, karma's a, what?
Well, I think the universities are corrupt.
I don't disagree.
I think the loan situation is predatory, and I think you get a look. We want millennials buying houses and having families. Many of them are settled with debt because they were told to get these loans out, and they weren't smart enough to figure out why they shouldn't have got that. And so I'm like, okay, if you want student loan forgiveness, then you got to take it from those universities that got that money. These are the universities that went to these students and said, you have to do this. What are you going to do unless they have these recruiters at universities who go and tell you why you need to go there, how much it'll cost. Mm-hmm. Then these people go and get these government-backed loans. Now they're in debt. Okay, the system can eat itself. There you go. Problem solved.
Oh, look, from a karma perspective, yes. From a legal perspective, I don't see how you do it. The people that are truly the most responsible for this are the politicians that advocated for it. Because they're the ones that actually cast the little vote. They push the little button saying, yes, we should make this a portion of the budget.
There's a way to do it without taking any money from anybody, and that's just terminating interest on all loans. So you got to pay back the principal. If you borrowed $40,000 from somebody and you spent $40,000, you got to pay it back. But the interest rates, which are compounding, we just delete those. Gone. Because those interests weren't granted to you. That's just them saying, oh, it's been 10 years, so now we say you owe us another $50,000. And it's like, well, that $50,000 didn't come from anywhere. You're just saying I owe it to you. We can get rid of that.
I mean, the government shouldn't be in the business of doing these sorts of loans anyways. Agreed. And that's an incredibly unpopular thing to say, and it is absolutely 100% true. Because we've created, especially since most of the universities are either public-private partnerships or they're state-run universities. So again, this is the government subsidizing another government agency in order to push a particular agenda. And then it works out perfect for politicians because they can first approve the loans with no intention of you ever having to fully pay them back, and then come back and say, I'm the nice guy that's going to forgive this, when they know damn well they can't forgive it. They can only transfer it on to other taxpayers.
Yeah, well, and the real scandal is that so many people feel they need a college education in order to make a living, and also that in a number of circumstances that can actually be the case. We need to ask ourselves, if a person cannot have a well-paying job with a 4-year degree, which actually isn't true, but let's just say it were the case, then why is that? And why aren't we trying to solve the problem of the first 12 years of education that everyone is provided for free, not preparing them for the marketplace? Now, of course, it's because public school is a racket. It's a horrible system. They don't really have your child's best interest in mind. But a parent who is homeschooling their child obviously has the best interest of their child in mind, and they're going to ensure that their child is educated in a way that will prepare them for the workforce so they can be a productive adult.
I think it's sad that people think they need college.
Yeah.
There's trades. There's entrepreneurship.
Well, I mean, it's you listen to Elon Musk talk about this. You listen to like Gary Vee talking about it. It's always the same thing. It's like our schools are not designed to actually do anything to help out with entrepreneurship. It's designed to make the best version is designed to make very good factory workers. The worst version, it's designed to make really good conscripts. And the problem that I have with all of it is, what did you expect, right? You have the government running an institution where they don't actually have to be responsive to the end users or the customers of the product or the service that they're providing. Because every time we try to pass any sort of legislation, we even do something like, hey, dollars follow students. Oh my gosh, you hate public school and you hate public teachers or public school teachers. Like, no, or I just recognize that like everywhere else in the marketplace, when people have genuine choices and they can go and find the services that work best for them, you actually get better quality at lower prices and more accessibility.
Yeah. What do you think about a voucher system for schools?
So I think there's a couple different ways you can do it. I think the idea of dollars following students, whether you want to call that a voucher, whether you wanted to make it an education savings account, I think it would be a vast improvement on what we currently have. What's funny is that the left immediately comes back and goes, you can't spend public tax dollars for a private service provider. Oh, you mean like with WIC or EBT or road construction or jet fighter construction or, I don't know, lodging and per diem the politicians use at private, Section 8 housing? Like, we do it all the time. It's like, you don't want it here because you want politicians to actually control the education of my child. And I don't understand why, because half the time I'm hearing we need to get politics out of the classroom. I know a way to do it. Actually give poor parents an opportunity to be able to do what rich liberals do with their kids and send them to private school.
I can't tell you how funny it is when I will talk to some liberal and say, they say Republicans are banning math and history. And I say, well, they're banning praxis. They're banning critical race praxis, the practice of these theories. And they say, yeah, but that's important context in history. And I was like, dude, if you want ideologies in schools, we can start with the Bible. Because if you think your ideology should be there, why couldn't a teacher teach any ideology they wanted? How about if you don't want religion in public schools, we then say you can't have other ideological praxis in those schools all the same.
Or we just do this, right? I don't want to tell the person that has an EBT card, you're only allowed to shop at the government grocery store I've assigned you based off of your address.
There wouldn't be any food there.
So how about we do this? You want your kid to learn that? You really think that's the best learning outcome for your kid? Okay, I might disagree. But I am not going to use the power of the state to compel you to educate your child the way I think is best. I'm going to let you make that decision. And if public dollars are following, you can come up with some, okay, hey, they got to take one test a year, or there's got to be some criteria like you can't take them to a school that's teaching them, violence against other people, whatever. That's fine. But you educate your child in the way you think is best. I will do the same. This goes right back to the whole socialism point I made earlier. It's not good enough for them that they be free to do what they want. They must compel me to do what they want. I make no such requirement of them. So which one of us, which ideology is the peaceful, tolerant one that actually appreciates diversity?
Because the problem is the right has been tolerant and peaceful, and the left then took over the institutions while they were being tolerant and peaceful.
Well, yeah, I mean, the right is obsessed with human respect and being perceived as one of the good ones by their enemies, which is completely suicidal and stupid. I'll also add that whenever you have these left-wingers who fire back at you for supporting vouchers by saying you hate public schools, they are admitting that parents would send their children anywhere else but public school if they had the option.
Corey DeAngelis makes that point beautifully daily on Twitter. Like,
he's fantastic.
Why would the money go away from public schools if there was an option?
They're so good. Aren't those public schools incredible? Aren't they good for kids? But at bottom, what they're saying is, okay, yes, parents would choose to send their kids elsewhere, but we can't allow them to have that choice because I decide how other people's children get educated, not them.
There's some value to that, to having uniformity in education. In that, like math, for instance, if one school teaches the kids 2 + 2 = 5 because it's 2.4 plus 2.4 is then, and the other half of the schools teach 2 + 2 = 4, and then all these people come out of the schooling systems and they can't agree on basic ideas like math, then we're in a really a challenging social place.
So two parts of that. One, you're starting to see that now within the public school system.
Exactly.
Right? They're doing it. They're the ones going 2 + 2 = 4 is racist. Right? The other thing I would say is this. How many parents are going to send their kids to a school, right, within a marketplace of education opportunities? How many parents are going to send their kids to the school that's teaching them 2 + 2 = 5? Maybe some would. Do we think it's going to be a majority? Do we think it's going to be enough to actually cause a problem? If that is such a concern with education, why is it not the same concern with respect to food, or with respect to where you buy your vehicle, or with respect to where you buy your health care? Because quite frankly, all of those are really important decisions as well. And here's what we find is that within the marketplace, when people have options, the best way to ensure quality is by giving people choice, not by putting a government board in charge of it, right? Like, I don't want the government misinformation board deciding what math looks like, because they're probably not going to come up with good ones. So yeah, in a perfect world, it would be great if everyone, could learn math the same way. They don't, right? So being able to have different options for students, hopefully to come to the, a logical and rational conclusion at the end of it. But the idea that the government taking over that process is more likely to get us a good product, I don't see it.
I mean, we've seen the exact opposite, right? Every year since the Department of Education was founded, test results have absolutely not improved, but funding adjusted for inflation has improved. And so I think, to your point, yeah, we really didn't see this kind of bizarre 2 + 2 = 5 thinking creep its way into public schools until long after the government had complete control over them. And frankly, if you were to go back to a time where schooling was more a product of the community and someone walked into the Little Red Schoolhouse and said, hey, let's teach our kids 2 + 2 = 5, they'd get laughed out of the room. No one would be willing to do it.
You see Thomas Massey's proposal?
Yes.
The Department of Education will terminate on December 31st, 2020 or whatever.
Yeah,
That
that's
says
right.
one sentence.
The best troll move he ever made, and I love Thomas Massey. The best troll move he ever did, though, is when Betsy DeVos was put in charge of Department of Education of the Trump administration. Massey put out this massive thing going, do you really want this woman in charge of your child's education? Support HB, and it was the same thing. It was
Right.
And he had all these lefties retweeting him. So yeah, we need to get behind this bill because I don't want Betsy DeVos in charge. But he was making a solid point. You're right. You don't want this person in charge of your child's education. So let's get rid of the mechanism that they use to try to control it and put you back in charge.
Well, so one point that the right and that libertarians will make when we're arguing with the left is, you guys should want to abolish this particular state institution because it might be the case that eventually someone who's more sympathetic to our views will be in charge of it, as opposed to someone who's sympathetic to your worldview. The reason I think that criticism never works and won't persuade them is because as a conservative or as a more right-leaning person, a more traditionally minded person, you know that on the local level, your solutions are generally things that most people support and would be willing to buy into. And I think the left knows that in order to get their agenda across, they need a gigantic bureaucratic state that's forcing these things onto everyone. So the risk of a conservative being periodically in charge of it is worth it to them, because the only way they can have any success is if it's forced onto everyone from some institution of that sort.
I think that's right. I think they've realized that, the old adage, I can't remember what it was, that, conservatives come in and end up conserving things that the liberals did 20 years earlier.
Yep.
And you saw that within the UK with the National Health Service. Right now there's not a single conservative candidate that's going to run on the idea of like, hey, look, this has been a colossal failure on a number of levels. Maybe we need to privatize more. No, it's always put us in charge of it and we'll run it more efficiently and more effectively. And so, yeah, I think they've made the deal here, and they realize that the more bureaucracy they get, eventually they push the Overton window in the direction they want, and they end up controlling it.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.